So on today's episode, I sit down with Brian Hantzis and we're going to find out three critical things. Number one, why cracking the US takes longer than you think and what slows it down. Number two, how to pick the right US distributor and spot the ones who just move boxes. And then number three, the three key things that a serious US distributor looks for before they even think about touching your product. Welcome to the Hate Files, real conversations with people who've actually built, broken and rebuilt healthcare businesses. No theory, no fluff, just what works. When people talk about breaking into the US, they usually picture a trade show, a couple of LinkedIn messages, and then praying a distributor's going to pick them up. Now, real life is just a little bit less glamorous. And a few months back, I was speaking to a founder who had been trying to crack America for 3 years. Yep, I said 3 years. And they had changed distributors twice, burned through a chunky marketing budget, and were now blaming the market, the customers, and anything else, the alignment of the stars. But when I dug into it, the problem wasn't the product, it wasn't the FDA, it wasn't even the budget. It was very much the basics. They didn't actually understand how distribution in the US actually works. And that's why today's guest is absolute gold dust for us. Brian Hantzis isn't just running a distributor, he's building a network. He's acquired distributors, he's rebuilt teams, he's taken risks and seen what works and what burns cash. So if there is a playbook for winning in the US MedTech market, then I think Brian is perfect because he's been writing it quietly while the rest of the industry is arguing about whether to do a webinar, whether to do a trade show. So today I'm going to try and pull that playbook out into the open from Brian. So welcome onto the show, Brian. Really glad you could join us.
Thanks, Akeem. It's great to be here with you, to see you. You know, we've known each other for a while now. We first met with our partnership with Hegenberger Medical. The funny thing I always tell everyone about you is that you and I butted heads early on over the contracting.
We did.
And I'm like, man, I really like this guy, you know, because I can be a little tough to deal with. And you just kept fighting me tooth and nail, holding me accountable to the contract, which knowing me, I was like, I'm not going to buy that much inventory. You're like, no, Brian, you signed the agreement. I'm like, and I had to acquiesce to you. But it's really, really cool that you and I have remained in touch with each other. You know, you invited me to do this, which is such an honor. And I just love what you're doing. I don't know if the guests know that you've or those viewers that you've had your own success in the medical device industry. You're a very humble guy. I'm really looking forward to jumping into this and covering these topics with you. I just hope you're nicer to me during this interview than you were to me during the contract negotiations with Hegenberger.
Well,
so I don't think I slept last night. I had anxiety. I'm like, I hope he doesn't just like rip me apart. But so just
the good thing is,
just be gentle, okay?
The good thing, I'm always when I'm not negotiating, I'm always gentle. But the good thing is that it shows that a good negotiation is tough, but you don't have to fall out about it. And I think that's what is really encouraging to me because it was a difficult negotiation, but we're still good friends. And I think that's the real.
100%
lesson that I take from it, that you're negotiating from your point of view, I'm negotiating from my point of view, we come to a happy medium and we move on and we just hopefully have success and after success. So I think that's the real important thing for people to take away from it. But yeah, I remember that very vividly.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good time.
So in terms of, let's jump into it. But before we get right into the nitty gritty, just give me your backstory, because I know a lot of people who are distributors, but how did you end up running a distributor? But then, more importantly, then starting to think about strategically buying distributors.
Yeah, so my story, it's not really that unique. So out of college, I'd worked for a multinational billion-dollar medical device company. Never really wanted to work for someone else. So you know, in my growth in that organization and promotion, I finally came to a headway where I was like, I need to go off on my own and do my own thing. I wasn't a corporate guy, right? Some people, they excel in corporate America. They're able to climb the ladder. They love that environment. It wasn't for me, so to say. And there's nothing wrong with being a corporate person in the medical device industry. There's so much incredible opportunity with these large medical device organizations. It's just, for whatever reason, I've always enjoyed that small business feel, truly eat what I kill, and I want to see what I could build for myself. So I'm not going to name the name of that organization. Actually, they were once actually based out of the UK, which is really cool that there's that link there. But in my learning and evolution there, which I'm very grateful for, I decided to go off and just do 1099 representation. All right. So I became literally the singular rep who worked for himself. And then I would, go to these niche specialty manufacturers and offer to represent and sell their product. And the geography at that time was the New England states in the US, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, and then all of New York, including New York City and Long Island and upstate New York. And in that process, I met a lot of amazing, amazing people who were very supportive of me and my growth. He's actually one of my mentors today still, and we're in great touch. He had a distributorship, and he was actually phasing out of it, and because he had started his own company to manufacture products, and it was doing incredibly well. And he's like, you know what? I think my era in this has come to an end. I'm going to start turning over some product lines to you and let you run with it. And, through that process, sales were essentially growing. I made the decision to start to actually buy inventory from those manufacturers that I was representing, where they had given me the exclusive geographic rights to sell their products. So no one else could represent those products. The hospitals and institutions could not buy those products from anyone else. So prior to that, they were doing just drop shipping that product for me. And then, of course, I would get paid my percentage. And then I started to buy that inventory, and my garage at the time became my warehouse, which was a terrible sight. And then I find out that UPS and FedEx, and these other basically shipping organizations legally aren't allowed to pick up, boxes for the intent of business to business sale or business to hospital sale. So the drivers would come to my home, I'd open up the garage for them. They'd be like, "Are you running a business out of your garage?" I'm like, "Maybe." They're like, we're really not supposed to do this. Then at one point I had a semi truck with a pallet backing into my driveway. I'm like, this is getting out of control. So the guy could barely get in. He didn't even have I was so foolish. I didn't even get a semi with a lift gate. So I climb up in the back of the truck. I'm cutting the box, I'm throwing him down. And the guy's just like, "Yeah, I don't think we can deliver here anymore." And I'm just like, so I went and I got a space. And then at that time I was growing, and I would be gone on a Sunday night to a Friday, all over the Northeast, going to these hospitals, meetings, presentations, demos, and servicing. And it just got out of control. So I hired one rep in the Boston area, which she's still with me today, believe it or not. And then I had hired another one in New York City about 6 months later. And they were with the organization up until about 6 months ago. They decided to go to a more, basically they were starting to phase out. They were getting older. They wanted just a more cushy role with just a medical device manufacturer. But in that journey, we just kept growing. I've been very fortunate. We were able to really narrow in on basically the departments we serve, and that would be the neonatal intensive care unit, labor and delivery, respiratory therapy, anesthesia. And I just built a name for myself within those departments, having a lot of relationships, contacts. So at that point, more and more folks were looking for distribution changes, better representation, a little bit more aggressive sales force that could drive results faster than what they had currently been experienced with other distributors, so that people started to come to me, right? In my world, you're only as good as what you did last for the manufacturer, and that tends to change every month, right? So if you're producing and you're selling, and you're growing market share, for your manufacturer partners, word gets out. It's a very tight-knit community. Then people will start to come to you. And then when new technology tends to come to the market, I am in competition with other, especially distributors, to get that product line. And I present, why we're different, why we're the best solution. So I then go get my warehouse space, build out operations. I add another rep to the organization. We're growing. And then I have this bright idea that I'm just going to start to acquire other distributorships. So I made an acquisition of an organization with a friend, which a friend and mentor of mine had owned, but we served totally different geographies, but we shared a lot of the same product lines. So there was synergy. And he's like, "I don't want to do this anymore, Brian. You're young. How about you just buy me?" So him and I negotiated terms, what we both thought was a fair deal. I made that acquisition. And then I would say at this point now, I'm looking at an acquisition about every 6 months. a lot of folks know that I'm a buyer and I'm a legitimate buyer in this space. And, they've been in business for 20, 25 years. Their kids want nothing to do with the business. This is not a glamorous business by any means. So they come to me or I reach out to them, and then we start the process of acquisition and basically merging their entity into mine.
And if that shift in mindset around going to acquisitions, is that specifically because you want to grow your footprint or you want to grow your revenue? What was going through your mind when you thought, actually, I'm going to start buying, this is now going to become my model?
I was in the right place at the right time. So I knew that even my competitors are my friends. I kid you not. And like, we're at the same conferences, the same trade shows, like we hang out at the bar in the evening, have dinner together. And I was like, you know what? This is a really good opportunity for me to grow my business through acquisition. And I ran with it. There's only so many times in life where those types of opportunities arise. And, luckily I'm the one who has a high enough risk tolerance and enough gumption to, do these deals and these acquisitions. And I structure things very fairly. Because they are, my friends to some extent. And I've basically become a lot of their just retirement plan. And then just word got out. Yeah. And then word got out, like, Brian does fair deals. He's always a buyer. But to your point, to answer your question more in a more pinpoint fashion, yeah, I want to scale. So I want to start to expand geographically into other markets. And then basically alleviate competition. So I was no longer competing with other distributorships for the best product lines, because you're only as good as the product lines that you have.
100%.
That is so much of my time late in the evenings is just reading about the different product lines, what they offer from a clinical standpoint, how they're going to improve patient care. Like, why would a physician or a provider want to use this product opposed to what is else currently in the market? And what is their value proposition? So much of that goes into trying to determine, like, what is right for our organization, but also what's going to have an impact in the marketplace, where it's a real tangible product that's going to lead to adoption and being utilized in that hospital or health system or that department.
And you're kind of already answering the next question, because I know a lot of distributors, and I don't know that many owners of distributors who are focusing on the things that you're focusing on. So the question I want to ask is, what separates a good US distributor from one that actually moves product and grows category? So I'm saying good because there's lots of distributors out there that people say, oh, these are great distributors, but I want to know what's the difference between that and then you, for example, because you can put it into anybody, right, but I want to move the product.
So there's specialized distributors, and then there's distributors. Specialized distributors, okay, they focus in specific departments served. They have a niche. They don't deviate from that niche. It's where they have relationships, they have current contacts, they know the space intimately. Then you have distributors who, in essence, they want to move boxes and just sell products. They could be selling products used in various departments throughout the hospital. They're almost like a catalog company. Those organizations, the representation that they have isn't going to know or be able to convey the clinical benefits of your product or your value proposition as effectively as those who are specialized in the department in which your product is used. In so much of going fast in medical device, believe it or not, it's still relationship heavy. It's those who can get access to key decision makers to actually present the product. Those are the ones who have success, because it's more challenging ever than it's ever been to even get face time with these providers and clinicians. 100%. So if you're a guy like me who sells anywhere from 5 to 10 products to NICUs throughout the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, and we know the medical director of that unit, the nurse manager, the educator, the assistant nurse manager, we're going to be able to get that meeting with the parties at B to present your product much faster than just a general line distributor who is just trying to move boxes and running all over the hospital. And that's really the big difference. So a good distributor has the relationships, the contacts, but they're also going to know The basic, in essence, the competitive products that your product is looking to replace, or you offer specific clinical benefits of your product compared to what else is out there. And then you're going to know how to navigate those departments and the process in which those departments go through to adopt a new technology or a new product.
Yeah, that's really useful for people to know. I mean, because, you've got digital, you've got lots of different ways now to access people, but I'm like you, the best way to communicate with people is still, in my way, face to face. And it's all about who do you know and how can you access them? Because there is lots of distributors who always say, oh yeah, we know this person, that person. And when you test it, you think, you don't really know that many people, do you? Or you don't know many people high up the food chain. And if you don't know people high up the food chain, you're not going to be shifting much.
No, and then so like I look at us, we're a contracted vendor with 98% of the hospitals in the market we serve. Meaning if they want to buy a product from us, once it's approved by Value Analysis, supply chain already has a working relationship with us because they're buying things from us on a daily basis. They add that product to their ordering system and they can start to buy. Then you don't have to go through all of the back end effort of getting set up as a vendor, credit applications, et cetera, et cetera. For a lot of our hospitals, we actually have a contract in place with them that has negotiated pricing terms, all of those things. Not everyone has that. And I put a big push on that over the past 2 years to actually get a contract in place with all of the large customers and hospitals that we serve, just because it makes things a lot easier. And then if they want to adopt basically a product that we're now representing and distributing, I have it added to that contract and we do an addendum.
And then if you're looking at, because obviously you're trying to get the top manufacturers or the manufacturers with the best products basically to sign them to. So when a manufacturer is looking at the US, what's sort of like the major misconception that they have about the US that you basically disabuse them of and then start moving them through a process?
So manufacturers, especially if they're from overseas, they see the US as this massive like blue ocean, right? The United States, we essentially are the market for medical devices. If you look at Europe, South America, even Canada, Middle East, their market opportunity is not nearly as large as the US. They don't have the number of hospitals. They have more socialized medicine, so they're limited on adoption based off the financial implication of these products. The US levels of consumption for medical devices and even pharmaceuticals is probably greater than all of those countries combined. So this is the market that everyone wants to play ball. What they don't understand is that the US market moves incredibly slow. In that it takes about 3 years to really get to an apex, and you're constantly navigating a lot of red tape from start to finish, and even to get these hospitals to adopt a product. Everything is looked at now, especially in this post-COVID world, because of, the financial ramifications that COVID had on a lot of US hospitals. More and more patients are on Medicare and Medicaid where reimbursements are less. All the hospitals' operational costs have gone up, and they're trying to navigate that. As a result, new product adoption is looked at with a lot of scrutiny. They're looking at the financial implication of adopting that product, reliability of inventory without disruption. Is what that manufacturer, what they're presenting clinically, is it actually legit? Everyone thinks they have the blackest cat, but when you say you're going to improve these clinical outcomes for these patients, prove it to me. Because if we're going to go through this long, aggravated process of making a change, we want to know that the juice is worth the squeeze and everything you presented to us actually was factual. So you add all of those things up and it slows down the process. It makes things very methodical. You're always building consensus because there's so many stakeholders that have to put their stamp of approval for that product to actually be, adopted. So manufacturers abroad, as they enter this world, they're almost always like, holy cow, this is a huge market, but this is a very arduous process. So that it's always understated, and no one really realizes how long it takes and the effort required.
Yeah, no. And I think that is definitely the case, because people always think, as you said, it's a big market. So and I think because it's not socialized, people think that, it'll move much quicker because it's more commercial. And it does more than other markets. But I think it's what you said is the value proposition and the value analysis that people put into that value proposition is probably higher, I think, than any other market, precisely because it isn't socialized. So the people who are looking at it are much more commercial than in somewhere like the UK. So the questions they're asking you, the data they're asking you for, the information they want is at a higher level from my experience than in other markets. So based on that, if there's like three key things that you look at when you're picking a product, what would they be? When a product comes to your desk, what are the three things that you're going to say, right, yeah, I want that. No, I don't want that.
I like products that have clear-cut clinical benefits for the patient, and they can back up their claims with studies and data. Because any healthcare provider, clinician, you go in, I'm Mr. Sales Rep. My product's going to reduce the likelihood of infection compared to what you're doing now. That sounds great, Brian. Prove it. Show me the data, show me the studies that make me feel certain that this product is going to do as you claim. Because you have to realize most healthcare workers, they're risk mitigators, and they view new as risk. And change is hard at times for a lot of these clinicians. So as you're going through a sales cycle with them, they're constantly vetting you, and they're vetting if this product really is going to lead to improved outcomes. So as a manufacturer, you need to arm the distributor or the representative with that information that not only tells your story, but proves to people with certainty that your claims are in fact true, and they're going to hold water when that product starts to interact with that patient.
And then I was just going to say, on that basis, what does the manufacturer need to do to ensure that you can obviously give you the data? But is there anything else that you feel the manufacturer needs to be doing to make sure you as a distributor have the best chance of succeeding?
Studies, white papers. You need to put those arrows in our quiver. We've taken on products that didn't have that data or those studies because they're expensive and they're arduous to do. I mean, it takes time. And those are the products where you always tend to run into a problem because you can't back up your claims. And then it becomes hypothetical. So, and I will tell you, in the United States, they like studies that were done in the United States and data from the United States. That study could have been done in Australia, and it could be phenomenal. You get in front of, U.S. healthcare workers, they say, well, Australia is not the United States. We have a different patient population. We don't know if this is even applicable or can be applied to us. So that's always number one, in that I like bringing innovative products to our customers that truly improve outcomes or have distinct clinical benefit compared to what they're using now. And I like to have the information to back those claims up. Number two is, I like fair partnerships. I think both parties have to win. I don't like one-sided agreements or contracts where the manufacturer is going to benefit much more from our efforts than we do. Typically a lot of these organizations from abroad, they have investors, whether it be venture capital, they bootstrap it, angel investors. And because things take so long, what you'll see them try to do is just unload inventory on you to juice their numbers and start to generate revenues. It's not real revenue. It's boxes sitting in, my warehouse that they're reporting as sales, product that's not turning over, that doesn't have run rate, that isn't actually making its way into a hospital. I hate that when manufacturers try to play those games, because it puts me in a really awkward situation. Both parties have to win. The contracts have to benefit both parties. And even now, because I can afford to be more selective on what we bring in, I flat out ask the manufacturer, like, what are your goals? Do you want to build a business, launch other products? Do you have an R&D pipeline where, you're going to start to bring other things to the table for us to sell? Or do you just want to get a proof of concept, get some sales, and then sell off your tech to one of the large manufacturers? And, me and my people just invested a ton of capital, effort, and resource into assisting you get traction in the US market, but we're never going to see any tail end revenues or commissions. So I like companies that are going to be around for a while, at least, 5 to 6 years. Or if they do have plans to sell, is there some type of golden parachute on my end where I can take advantage of the sale and the profits that are generated from that sale.
Which I think is only fair. So on that particular, how do you, are people honest with you? Because I'm just thinking, if you are just wanting to get some traction and then sell the business, what's their motivation to tell you the truth?
I can usually tell. If they're coming to me, and I can tell by the state in which they're in from a pressure standpoint, and if they have venture capital involved, I know that it's about a 3 to 5 year window that they're gonna then look to sell because they have to, and that was a lot of the premise of those individuals investing in their organization, whether it be institutional funds or private. If they've bootstrapped this thing and financed a lot of it on their own, I know they're going to be around a while. And it's just the conversation, like, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to do here? When it's a singular product, I know that the life cycle's much shorter. When they have a multitude of products that they're launching and they really want to disrupt a segment or a department, I know they're going to be around a while. You know, sometimes I'm like, look, your product is so good. This is so innovative. Like, you rocked it out of the park on this one. I know someone's going to offer you money for this. Are you like, where are you are you series A, B, or C? I want to invest. I'll write you a check so I can enjoy the spoils right there with you. So we just did a deal with the company that's actually publicly traded. This is the first one we've ever done. They have a generation 2 of a product that is going to be so innovative and disruptive that I just bought a ton of their shares. I've never dealt with a publicly traded company using specialty distribution before, and that's pretty unique. But I know once they're established in the marketplace, they're not going to need us anymore.
Yeah, but you know that up front, don't, and I think that's the key thing, because you talked about fair partnerships, isn't it? And it's being honest with each other so that you then know how to structure your business, how to structure the model, and how to work together to get the best for both companies. And I think that when you can have that, then everybody wins. And just on that note, I mean, in terms of pricing, how do you manage the pricing? Because every single person wants should I say, the manufacturer generally wants high volume and high pricing, and the market wants high volume and very, very low pricing. So how do you manage that disconnect?
Yeah, so me in my world, if you're not going to provide me 30 or 35% margin, I'm not going to do it. I have my own operational costs. I have to pay people fairly. You know, we're paying for conferences, sponsoring, you know, speakers, all kinds of things. If I don't have 30 or 35%, the numbers start to get really lean. Once I factor out our operational costs, I start to look at net profit for product line. What I tell the manufacturers is we need to look at competition, and I'll help you with this, what they're selling for. And then where can we go from there as a baseline based off of the clinical benefits of your product and how it's better than the competitive one. Sometimes that's 5%, 10%, 20%. And then you can offer to pitch, you know, soft cost, such as, you know, we're reducing sepsis or infection or pressure injuries. What do those things cost the hospital if that event occurs in the back end? But I like to use competitive products that you're looking to replace as a baseline to go up from.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. And in terms of, I was just thinking about, you were talking about your story and how you've built it, you've brought on different salespeople. How do you make sure that you get a sales team that can handle the required level of clinical conversation? Are you recruiting them from scratch, or are you getting people already experienced in that?
It's the hardest part of what I do. I've done both. I brought on people who just have raw talent, work ethic, coachable, high acumen. They sold insurance before, or copy machines or payroll. But in the interview process, I typically have someone always present a product to me before I hire them, and I give them the clinical information. And then I try to gauge how well they digested that information, how fast they could do it, and then how well they can communicate it to me. And I really like those individuals. They have such a hunger, and they're not burnt out from this arduous industry that we're in.
Yeah.
And they don't have any negative connotations of like, this hospital, man, it's so tough. They never want to bring in anything new. Or, you know, Betty Sue, the nurse manager, is such a jerk. They're just, you know, a clean slate, and they go at it in this optimistic way, which is incredible. But they have to have the acumen to understand the information clinically, digest it, and reconvey it. And then they have to have a passion where they want to learn as much as they can and understand the departments that we serve, and then build those relationships and just have that natural charisma. And sometimes it's even empathy for the patient, understanding that the products we sell, it's not just like a widget. It's used on a human being that could be your child, your friend's child, your aunt and uncle's child, or whatever. Or that product could be used on you someday, who knows? So they have to realize that this is more than just a sales job, that you are assisting those who are trying to care for and in many times save the lives of patients. And then those who are more experienced, those usually come to me by referral. They're looking to make a change. They have a network. They know a lot of contacts. They've sold products similar to ours in the past. They've had tremendous success. I tend to gauge them based off their reputation. And just in conversation, I can tell if they know what they're talking about or not.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to go younger as an organization, which there's no HR around, so I can say that. Just because there's a transition occurring. Like even the clinicians and the providers, like the old guard is phasing out. There's a new generation coming up. I'm looking for people who are going to be with me for 10 to 20 years. I don't like turnover. As an organization, when you have a consistent representation for a long time that are building relationships, it reflects better on your organization. So, that's a big initiative I have going on right now, but it's tough. Like not a lot of young people want to get into this industry because it is so hard. It's so grueling.
Yeah.
But it's also incredibly rewarding. So, that's how I'm skinning that cat. But I try to find those who don't have the experience, but the acumen, the work ethic, the personality. And then I try to find like really good people who've been around a long time and give them a more lucrative comp plan.
Yeah.
Give them, like, I'm not a micromanager at all. I probably should be. It's one of my weaknesses. I tend to put too much faith into people, but some people just want a better comp plan. It's that simple.
And how do you, because you're quite clear on what you're trying to do, the ethos that you want in a business. So when you're acquiring a business, if it comes with there's a salesperson, how do you make sure that your ethos is then starts to be integrated into whatever business you're acquiring?
Yeah, so the way I evaluate businesses I acquire is I look at their product line and their offering. If I think that those are great product lines, that there's a synergy that we could throw in our bag tomorrow and have tremendous success with, that those products are being used in the same departments that we serve, and I've seen them adopted, I've seen them being used, I go pretty hard for those businesses. And then I look at it like, how's their representation? I'm going to keep the best they have. And then I'm going to strip out all operational expense out of that business. And I'm going to, unfortunately, most likely terminate those reps that I think mine are better. So in essence, you're buying product lines and you're buying revenue. And then I like to think that out of their top 6 product lines that are generating substantial revenues, what meat is left on the bone of how much further I can take it. And then I just go into cost cutting mode. I'm going to close their office. I'm going to let go of their operational staff, and I'm going to integrate that into mine. And then hopefully cash flow can cover debt service to the bank. And then I get a pretty fast ROI within
Which makes sense. And I can't believe, I say this every episode actually, but whenever you've got an interesting guest on, the time just disappears and you think, oh, where's the 40 minutes? Where did 40 minutes go? So I'm coming to my final question. So
Sure.
Just really from a point of view, because you've got a really unique, I think, perspective. Firstly, in the US, which is a market everyone wants to get into. Secondly, you're a successful distributor, but that's actually really understanding what makes distribution successful in the US. So where do you see medtech distribution going in the next, say, 3 to 5 years? More consolidation, more specialization, or something completely different?
You have to look at the large distributors, general line. It's going to be dominated by Cardinal Health and Medline. They'll probably be the only 2 remaining in the United States. Owens, the smaller ones, they'll be gone or they'll be acquired by one of those 2 entities. Specialty distributors are consolidating rapidly. There's only probably going to be a few of us left in the United States, but more and more organizations are coming to us now to represent and distribute their product, because if you're a manufacturer, we're almost working for free to some extent. You're not paying us benefits. You're not giving us a base salary. You're not giving us, an expense account. We're buying product from you and selling it. Then your money's finances are going into R&D, trade shows, operational expenditure, manufacturing. One detriment to a business is always the employees and the human capital. So much money goes to those people. So they look at the specialty distribution world like, you have stronger relationships and more experiences in these departments that we want to access. I don't know if we could hire people and offer what you do. Could take us years to find reps who can build those relationships or already have them, and they could leave us at any time. And then with how the US labor market works, that rep statistically, bringing on a new rep, you're going to spend about $200,000 on that rep, getting them up and running. Well, guess what? That person could leave at any time, or they might not pan out. So there's all that waste, where if they come to us, you guys aren't doing a good enough job for us, we just terminate you. Every contract has a 30-day termination clause, but they want to access our network to go faster. So I think the specialty distribution arena, even though it's consolidating, more and more manufacturers and those who want to break into the US market, we are their best, lowest cost option.
Yeah, no, I think so, because unless you've got a commodity which is just easily replaceable with something else, going to an Owens & Minor, going to a Cardinal Health, etc., you're just another one in a bag of hundreds of thousands of products.
100%.
They're not going to get to understand the product. All they're doing is pumping stuff in. Whereas if you've got an innovative product, which is what we're talking about and what we're talking about, you need someone who knows what to do. And you need someone who's got those specific contacts who can go through that value analysis process, who can actually present the clinical data and the clinical evidence. You need those contacts. Otherwise, I think you're dead on arrival, to be honest.
100%. And then what organization has representation that is interacting with a department on a day-to-day basis that you want to access? If they're like a Cardinal or Medline, those reps are all over the hospital. I mean, they're calling on everything. Our reps, they should be going to the same 4 or 5 departments religiously. And we already have existing business. So, but that's where I see it going, especially distribution's consolidating. A lot of people are getting out of it. And then, a Medline or Cardinal Health, the general line distributors, they're going to be the only 2 shows in town at some point. You've already seen the regional large box movers just disappear.
Yeah.
And then we're even starting to work more in conjunction with Medline and Cardinal, where the hospital wants the product, they want to go through them, we're selling it to them for that specific hospital. So yeah, I think the good specialty distribution operations are always going to be around. They'll continue to grow. Those that are underperforming and can't get the job done for their manufacturing partners, they'll start to really disappear. But it also plays into the consolidation within healthcare. I mean, these health systems are getting larger, there's more acquisitions. So even your number of customers is going to start to reduce as time goes on.
And if there was one thing to leave the listeners and the viewers with in terms of that, manufacturer, you're looking to find a distributor in the US, what are the 1 or 2 key things that they need to just keep in mind?
You want a distributor with a track record, and you want to look closely at what product lines they're currently selling and who they specialize in from a department standpoint. You don't, if you sell an L&D product, you don't want to give it to a distributor that specializes in orthopedics. I mean, it's not going to go very far. And then I would say, look at the infrastructure of that distributor. Are they already a contracted supplier to a lot of the hospitals in their area? What type of inventory do they have now? Where are they financially to buy, inventory? Because my greatest challenge is getting paid. That's what keeps me up at night, is getting the hospitals to actually pay their bills. So, there's a heavy cash requirement in distribution that people often underestimate. But before they sign up with someone, if it was me, and I own a business that's in manufacturing, I'm going through that now too. I want to meet their sales reps, on a call, and just kind of pick their brain and see the quality of rep that distributor can offer me. Because you live and die by your representation. I live and die by my representation. And the manufacturing partners with me will live and die by my representation. So that would be my advice, is really vet that distributor and make sure they're actually doing what they say they do, and get to know their people.
Thank you very much, Brian. I think that's perfect. It's a place to wrap up. Really appreciate it. It's been very illuminating. I know people are going to find it very, very useful because, as we said at the outset, everybody's trying to get into the US. Well, should I say, more people are trying to get into the US than actually know how to get into the US. So actually, listen to you and get some advice.
And the other thing is, like, if you want to break into the US, have your ducks in a row. I mean, you need to go through the FDA approvals, the 510K process, biocompatibility testing. Have your studies ready to go. Invest the time into getting those studies done in the US.
Yeah.
Have your clinical data like Loctite. And then go to market, and then actually put time into building out your sales and distribution network. Don't just go with whoever and rush it. Like, be methodical in that process.
100%. So thank you on that note. We will call it a day. And appreciate your time and your experience and the conversation. So if there's one takeaway from today, it's this. The US isn't hard because it's big. It's hard because it's disciplined. You don't win by showing up loud. You win by showing up prepared. And Brian showed us that the difference between success and 3 years of frustration isn't the product. It's not the FDA and it's not the budget. It's understanding how distribution actually works, who really move decisions, and what a fair partnership looks like on the ground. So if you're serious about the US, stop chasing shortcuts. Build the data, pick the right distributor, and play the long game properly. Brian, thank you very much for pulling the curtain back. And to everyone listening, if this saved you even one wrong distributor, then it's done its job. And if this episode earned your time, earn us one click back, follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're using. Keep growing and keep listening.